Lesson 18. Vishuddhi Chakra. Vishuddhi Chakra is the throat chakra. It's the last chakra before the mental body and the crown chakra. It's the highest chakra considered to be part of the physical body. The name Vishuddhi contains Shodhana, and that implies purity or purification, because Shodhana means purification. The pranayama that you learn next week is called Nadi Shodhana, which means purifying the energy channels. Shodhana is purification. This chakra is considered to be the inherently sattvic chakra among all the other chakras. The other chakras, each of the chakras in increasing number has petals. Muladhara chakra has 2, next one has 4, and then the next one has 6 or 8, etc. This one has 12. The 4 chakras below Vishuddhi chakra, in the petals, the characters are all consonants, while the petals in Vishuddhi chakra are only vowels. There are 16, not 12, 16. Then the story goes that the vowels are the carriers of sound and therefore considered to be pure. And the petals contain only vowels as a symbolic indication that this is inherently the chakra of purity or purification. Or the lower chakras all contain consonants, and consonants are said to be disharmonious and disturbing the flow of the vowels. That's just a story. Don't think it is of much practical value. There are a lot of other things, though, that are of practical value related to this chakra, of course, like with the other chakras. You see in the second short paragraph that I mentioned, the first vibration in the universe is sound. The second vibration is the causal world. And the third vibration is air. But I did not explain, I did not elaborate, so it sounds very mysterious or doesn't have much meaning unless you know what this is about. The first vibration in the universe is Om. Remember, first there was the word, the Om, pure harmony. When that became disturbed, the universe slowly started to manifest as the result of condensing energy. So the first vibration in the universe is sound, is Om. The second vibration is the causal world. That the causal world is consciousness. So we are surrounded by consciousness. We possess consciousness, but there is consciousness all around us. We are just not aware of it. But sensitive people sense these vibrations. It explains why all the generations believe in ghosts, they believe in spirits, because they are mentally not so burdened as younger generations. So older generations have a lot of superstition because they sense more than younger generations, but they are lacking the intellect or the intellectual capacity to rationalize what they feel. And that leads to fear. So superstition is based on not knowing what you are feeling, so you are scared of it. So the second vibration is the causal world, which is all around us. The universe contains consciousness. We are only part of that. The third vibration is air. That is the subtle element of the heart chakra. So that third vibration is air, is ananda, love. Love is what makes the world go round. Hate, the opposite of love, is what destroys it. The function of the center of Vishuddhi Chakra is expression. Expression in the form of speech, but also body language, and also, of course, and very important, expression in a creative way. Artists, real artists, are creative through the throat chakra. So, speech is only a small part of this expression. It's all forms of expression. Non-verbal, physical, mental also. The way that you think creates a vibration that people pick up on. To create sattva in the chakra, of course, yoga is always good for that purpose. But people, almost everybody, likes to go out into nature. People intuitively or instinctively like to go to a forest, to the beach, to the mountains, because natural environment creates sattva in the throat chakra, and we have a sense of well-being when we're out in nature. The opposite is happening in the city when you are surrounded by steel, concrete, and asphalt. It creates disharmony. So if you pay attention, you visit the countryside, and you compare that with city society, you see that people are very different. I always jokingly say people in the countryside don't need yoga. They're always at ease, they smile a lot, they joke a lot, they're relatively happy. What you see in the city is straight faces, tension, unhappiness, sadness, because city life in itself, if you don't take control of your condition, is really not that healthy. I once slept in I went to a retreat in Chirisan when nobody else was there, so it was out of season, in the winter, very cold, snow, and it was from a Catholic church, and my partner of that time took me there. We stayed there for a week. And all the cabins were made out of wood, all natural material. And something very interesting happened. My life up to that point had been very busy. First, training Hapkido 6 days a week. And then I started teaching yoga while continuing training Hapkido. I increased the number of classes. So I got really busy. And then I started my own yoga studio in Itaewon in 2002. So always very busy. This is not really healthy for a yogi, but that's what you need to do if you follow your dream and you want to. I mean, dreams do not just happen out of the blue or just because you believe. You need to actively pursue. God helps only them. God helps only those who help themselves. That is a very valid expression. So you have to work to get things done. And while I was there in that wooden cabin, all we did basically was eat and sleep. And it felt so good. And I ate like 2 or 3 times as much food that they prepared, very healthy, lots of No meat, only lots of veggies and roots and grains, of course. Healthy rice mixed with beans and what have you. And I would just eat and sleep. And normally that makes me very tamas and feel sluggish and heavy. But it felt very healing. It felt very wholesome. And we walked and then eat and then sleep and just repeat. And it felt so natural and so harmonious, so just incredibly. I will just never forget. The moment that we came back to Seoul, it just felt like very, very harsh. Back to the concrete and steel apartment with all the electronics and what have you, and it was kind of violent in a way. It made me have a wish that if ever possible in my life, I want to live in a wooden house, if possible. Up until now, I still live in a concrete house. But if ever it's possible, I will take the opportunity and either build my own house, which I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen, or move into an existing house that is mainly built out of natural materials. Natural materials are sattvic inherently by nature, while chemicals, man-produced materials, generally, synthetics and what have you, they're by nature disharmonious. And most people don't notice this, but as a yogi you become more sensitive and conscious, and you start noticing the difference very clearly. The subtle element, or the tamatra, is ether. You understand what ether is? I learned from my students that most American, English, and Korean people do not understand exactly what ether means. In the Netherlands, it's a very commonly used word. Because if you listen to the radio, the presenter or the DJ will frequently say, "We are coming to your living room through the ether." So for Dutch people, the word ether is very commonly used, very familiar. Ether is thinner than air. Remember, from the top, you have energy, gas, liquid, solid matter. So you go up, it becomes thinner. You have earth, water, fire, air, ether. Ether is what carries the sound, the vibration. The reason why the DJ or the presenter says, "We are coming to you, to your living room through the ether," is because these days, of course, you have internet and fiber cables, but in the past, you listen to the radio through an antenna. So the broadcasting company has a big antenna on the roof, and they are spreading vibration, which in your house, even 100 kilometers away, you have an antenna on your roof that catches that vibration and translate that into your radio, into sound. The substance that carries the vibration of sound is ether. Not air, but ether. You understand? As human beings, we are a walking antenna. Just we have lost the sensitivity to receive. And when we receive, we don't have the capacity or the capability to translate it. But when you become more sensitive, you will more and more receive vibrations consciously from your environment. One of the phenomena that you have is that you can read people's minds. In Korea, Korean people are very proud of the phenomenon of 눈치 보는 거, right? 눈치. Except most people who think that they are capable of 눈치 보는 거, they can't. So there are always misunderstandings because of this. Because if you're really capable of 눈치 보는 거, it's accurate. Well, people think that they are smart and they think they can read your mind, so they guess your intention. And because of that, because they're very often wrong about your intention, it leads to conflict all the time. But it does exist. There are people who naturally have the ability, but most people who think they are able to do that, they actually not. They're just guessing. And they're guessing based on lower emotions and desires. Fear, mistrust, suspicion. Not because of love or unconditional love. So that is why it always goes wrong, or very often goes wrong. But ether is important because it carries vibration. And if you develop more sensitivity, you will catch that vibration. You are a walking antenna. It just needs a little bit reconditioning. And that will allow you also to feel people's intention. The one thing that you need to learn, and that is why you learn yama and niyama, one thing that you need to learn is to interpret that vibration that you catch from other people in a neutral way, without judgment, without conditioned interpretation. Because if you're not pure, you will translate what you feel in a negative way. That is just human nature, based on fear, suspicion, mistrust. So that always leads to tension and conflict with other people. The subtle vehicle of action, the karmendriya, is the speech. The subtle organ of perception, the jnanendriya, is hearing. Hearing, the ears are connected with the throat. In Dutch we call it the tube of Eustachius, something like that. There is a physical connection to the throat with the ear. The subtle energy is called Vijnana prana, and the color blue, the color of trust, stability, harmony. If you ask people their favorite color, most people will pick blue because of this. This color blue. I have when all my coats and jackets were hanging on a cloth hanger, my friend said, everything is blue. Not everything is totally blue, but everything contains blue. That is because it's my favorite color. Before I learned about this, it was already my favorite color. Now I know why. Because everybody, because it is inherently the center of purity, of sattva, everybody has blockages on the throat level. And the color blue contributes to harmonizing that. And the reason why everybody, even the best yogis and the highest developed yogis and what have you, have blockages on the throat chakra is because nobody can accurately express all the subtle things that you feel. Because words, verbal expression, although it is very sophisticated if you compare it to the animal world, is very limited. Nobody can accurately put into words what you exactly feel. And because of that also, conflicts often arise. because you try to explain something to your partner or a friend or a family member, and they don't catch the nuance of what you're trying to say, and you cannot explain it any better for lack of words. So expression is always limited. Therefore, no matter how eloquent we are, no matter how skillful we are at expressing ourselves, there is always a limitation there. Yeah, I mentioned this before. I'm pretty sure the need for people to speak or to hear sound. When maybe you recognize this self, but you also see that with other people. People always have some sound on, either the radio, or these days most people have the TV on. And it's on all day, even though they don't watch or don't listen, but they just want to hear the sound. And one thing that surprised me when I came to Korea, because it is totally different from the Dutch situation, is that in Korea there were TVs everywhere. In shops, in street stalls. In the Netherlands, that you wouldn't see that. In shops and restaurants and street stalls, you wouldn't see any TV. In Korea, I saw them everywhere. Even those small ticket booths where they sell bus tickets that are full with cigarettes and lottery and packed chewing gum, but there's always room for a small TV. 신기해요. But it shows that people just need something to keep them occupied. It also, if you understand this, that people become uncomfortable when there is silence, you understand why fake yoga teachers need to talk all the time. And they need to play music during every class. And they even talk during the meditation. Why? Because they have no sattva. And they never studied any of this. But if you are a yoga teacher, if you're a real yoga teacher, you can still use music and you can still explain things, but you're not afraid of silence anymore. But that is why they talk all the time. And they're not aware of it, which is in total contradiction with what yoga is about. It's kind of ironic. Silence is used as a form of punishment. They do this in prison. If a prisoner misbehaves, they take you away from the prison population and they put you in an isolation cell where you are all alone. No TV, no radio, and no other people other than the guards that will come to bring you your food or whatever you need. It's being used as punishment. That is how important sound is to unconditioned people. If you are a yogi, you might actually appreciate the isolation because you can now be alone with yourself and nada, and you can observe your thoughts again, as opposed to the situation in which you are with other people and there's constant distraction, sound, movement. As a yogi, you probably appreciate, or at least you will know how to deal with the silence so that it doesn't become a punishment. Then Western governments, they use this isolation as a subtle form of torture. There was, when I was a child, there were these terrorist organizations in Europe. The Red Army Brigades. Japan had a Red Army Brigade. Germany, Rote Armee Fraktion, the Red Army Brigade. Italy, those I know sure, Japan, Germany, Italy. Spain, probably, but the most violent one was the one in Germany, the Rote Armee Fraktion. They killed captains of industry. They would kidnap chairmen of big companies, like Philips, the biggest companies, the multinational companies, kidnap them and then ask for a ransom, ask for money. That is how they robbed banks very violently, and they kidnapped people. But they killed people. They killed politicians. They killed captains of industry. They used bombs. Very violent. They were based on Marxist ideology, communism, basically, and against modern society and capitalism and idealistic ideas. But they used horrible violence to manifest themselves. So when the authorities finally were able to catch them, they put them in prison. And they wanted to severely punish them. So they got, they cannot give them death sentence because they don't do that anymore in Europe. So they give them lifelong sentences. And not only that, they built special prisons for those terrorists in which each of the prisoners was isolated in completely soundproof rooms. That was the way of the authorities to retaliate. It's a form of torture, but we don't call it torture because we're not giving them electric shocks or burning them or cutting them or trying to drown them, but just subject them to total isolation, silence. So it can amount to torture in this way, and it has been used as such. The opposite is also true, is using loud sound to torture people. The American army did that with prisoners in Iraq, in the Middle East. And the CIA used that also. They would play very loud hard rock music to drive people insane. So silence and too much noise both have kind of the same effect. It can drive people insane. It's related to the throat chakra, of course, because of the chaos that it causes. The silence causes the restlessness, the noise causes the chaos. As a yogi, you will notice that you are less and less tolerant to noise. While in the past maybe you were not disturbed by it at all, you become less and less tolerant to noise. The energy Viyana Prana is the energy that we also know as the phenomenon of ghost. There are people who like ghost stories, horror movies, and but the interesting thing is that a ghost is in fact the energy of a person that has died already. And yoga explains where this comes from. When you die in peace, after 2 or 3 days, I don't know exactly, but after some time, after your death, your energy rises out of your body. That is called the ascendance. So that is a story in the Bible of Jesus Christ when he died. They put him in a cave, and then he rose out of his body. Normal people also, when we die, our spirit ascends from our body. According to yoga though, if you die abruptly because of violence, very suddenly, you are not at peace, you are not ready to die. So your spirit, your energy is very disharmonious. And while your body died and is then buried or burned, your energy stays in that place, a restless spirit. That is the ghost phenomenon. That is why you have the stories of the haunted house or the haunted forest. In the forest, maybe 100 years or hundreds of years ago, there was a battle between soldiers, and they killed each other. So there is a lot of restless energy that is still there. And in a house, an old house where 80 years ago somebody died a violent death, was murdered or had a terrible disease that caused terrible suffering, that person died in great pain. That spirit, that energy of that person stays behind until it finds peace, sattva. So there are people, we call them exorcists, who have the ability to chase the ghost away. That is the story. The story in ghost horror movies, ghost stories, is that the exorcist chases the ghost away. But a real exorcist is a spiritual person who can connect with the restless spirit and make them comfortable, put them at ease, make them sattvic. And they have a suitcase with all their tools and their things, but that is all symbolism. What they're really doing is subtle, and they do that in spirit. And the little bag with tools and things, that is just symbolism. Once the spirit is made peaceful, at ease, it will then finally be ready to ascend after many years or decades of restlessly hanging around there. And the ghost stories come from people who are sensitive towards these vibrations, because most people won't feel that energy. But younger generations are very mentally developed, but they are lacking the sensitivity. Older generations, and that is where those stories come from, stories about spirits and ghosts in the forest, in the field, in the house, it's from older people that still possess the sensitivity to sense those vibrations of the restless spirit. And because they can't see it, they can't rationalize it, it causes fear. Hence the horror stories, the genre of the horror stories or the ghost stories. In Hapkido, there is a technique, it is called Kyapsul, in which you loudly scream or shout before you attack your opponent. And the reason why you shout in traditional martial arts is to disorientate your opponent. It causes a short shock in your opponent during which you attack. Now, loud noise causes disorientation in people. That is why burglary alarm is always accompanied by a lot of noise. If you burgle a car, the car alarm will start going off, the lights will start flashing, but more importantly, the horn will start blaring very loudly. A thief, a burglar, needs darkness and silence. so that nobody notices them. So burglary alarm on your house or your car is designed to disturb, to disrupt the throat chakra. It causes panic in the thief. They cannot continue doing what they do. They run away in panic. They don't know anymore what they're doing. I've noticed this once. Before I came to Korea, I had a job for which I was driving around the northern province of the Netherlands. That was my territory, so I was driving around. Then one day I was in Amsterdam, where I live also, and I was in a parking garage, underground parking garage, and before I left the customer, I was doing some administrative work. So I was sitting in my car, and suddenly I noticed two guys walking around, and they were a little bit suspicious because they looked in every car. So I thought, interesting. Because I understood they are looking for valuable things in the cars, and they're probably going to burgle a car. Something very interesting happened. They saw something valuable, then they forced the door open. They didn't break the window, which they often do, but they kind of forced the lock. And then when they opened it, it started bap, 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 bap. Then one of these guys was so shocked by the noise, he wanted to run away, of course, but you're in a parking lot, so you need to find the exit. You know what he did? He ran around the car that he was burgling 3 times. Totally in panic. 3 times. And then finally he knew where to go. He was so disorientated, so shocked by the car alarm. So very effective. This also means when you are in trouble, when somebody is attacking you, sometimes people say, when you're being attacked, just stay quiet. Maybe they will go away. No, that's the last thing you must do. You must make as much noise as possible. Maybe they will punch you, but they will be so scared that your noise will attract other people's attention that they have no choice but to run away, to flee. Good, that's about all I wanted to tell you about the throat chakra. Questions? Yes?
Why is the headphone bad for Vishuddhi?
The headphone, when I wrote this, smartphones didn't exist, but we did have Walkmans. You would play a cassette in a small cassette player with headphones directly in your ear. Now, loud music in itself is already causing chaos in your throat chakra. This is also the reason why young people, especially young boys, they like hard rock music. Because their energy is still very restless, so it is on the same wavelength as hard rock music or heavy metal. When you get older, you hate that music because it disrupts your throat chakra. When you wear, with the smartphone, you plug in your earphones to your smart. These days, of course, you have cordless, the earplugs, the ear pods. What do you call these things? If you exceed a certain volume, your phone will indicate the color red. And it does that already in a very early stage, because the manufacturer of the device knows that it is very harmful to have sound directly projected into the ear. It becomes red already while you think, well, this is not so bad, this is okay for me, but it's already considered to be harmful. It causes chaos in the throat chakra. Noise is... Unconditioned people have difficulty with silence, but also noise is very disruptive. All right, let's have a short break.